Hello,
Bingo.
strangers. Thank you. Hello, strangers. I'm
You're not a
Andy.
stranger to me, for God's sake. I've known you for about 20 years, you idiot. You know I'm Mark, surely. Or is
And
your
this
memory so shot? You
and this
don't.
is the very amateur Strange Stuff podcast. Welcome back.
What,
You
you
wouldn't
thought there was an element of professionalism at some stage in this podcast,
you wouldn't have
did
thought
you?
we're coming up for 3 years doing this.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Well, of course, people can see you now. I was going to comment on your... I make an effort to put a shirt on, and you
So did
appear
I.
in some high-vis T-shirt.
Well, some of us have got to go and earn a living later today.
Yeah, you're right. And thank God for that. Who would do it if it wasn't for you?
So, O.J. Simpson.
Deceased.
Yes.
So would you expect a, what do you call it, a deathbed confession?
You don't need one. The O.J. Simpson thing was very divisive, as we know. But whether you believe he did it or whether you believe he don't, I think both camps can now be fully satisfied that the murderer is dead.
Oh. But in fact, he did get found responsible for her murder in a civil trial. Wasn't that the way it worked?
He did. And that was that happened just a year after the acquittal from the criminal trial.
I can't quite... it doesn't make any difference. I don't quite understand. Is there a lower threshold of proof in a civil trial as compared to a criminal trial?
No, but I think the main problem with the criminal trial was DNA evidence of the type they were producing in court was designed in those days to confuse juries. And it was used to confuse juries rather than to clarify what went on where. And the jury were under immense pressure anyway, being in the first ever live televised murder trial.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Really?
It went on for like 8 months worldwide.
I know.
So
it was a bit of a fiasco.
Bear in mind all that pressure, plus the fact that no American wanted to believe that their best football player would possibly be capable of such a thing. And football fans are really weird when it comes to what they believe in. So the whole thing was a bit of a travesty. The whole thing was a bit of a travesty. He definitely did it in my book. And, if you don't agree with me, so what? Me and Richard have actually recorded an episode about the whole thing, which will be going out next Sunday. Or
by coincidence?
Yeah. Or in fact, today, if you're watching this.
It was by sheer coincidence. You did a bit on...
We recorded it before the weekend.
So he hadn't died when you recorded it?
Yeah, he died on Wednesday.
Oh, right. Okay. So it was as a result of his death that you did an O.J. Simpson number. Yeah, fair enough.
It was easy pickings, really.
Yeah.
It was just there.
Anyway, he's gone, hasn't he? And the other interesting trial thing is that not OJ, what's his called? Trump. He's going to stand trial today. It starts today. And what was her name? Oh, no, Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Weather. What is he charged with? Peeing in a private place?
No, I think he's being charged with the fact that he paid her hush money during an election campaign. So using campaign funds. So it's misappropriation of campaign funds. But what he's worried about is that she's actually going to sit in the witness chair and say he's got a willy shaped like a mushroom and all of that sort of stuff, which is going to be fantastic television, but obviously acutely embarrassing for anybody. But who cares?
It's not like anyone looks up to him. No one's going to...
What do you mean? They look up to him as a god.
No one is actually going to think any less of him just because he's got a magic mushroom-shaped pee-pee.
No, actually, that is very true, because the Trump supporters are going to say it's all a fabrication, it's all a CIA plot to dishonor him. And obviously, the people who don't like Trump already know that he's a crook and a misogynist. So what difference does it make? No, you're right to that extent. But, I mean, acutely embarrassing. He's standing to be president of the United States of America. He's been put forward by the GOP, the Republican Party, as their representative of USA, and he's standing up in court being accused of, I mean, misappropriation of campaign funds doesn't sound particularly fancy or jazzy, but the evidence that I'm sure is going to come out in the trial.
Well, America, you're in the same shit state as the UK. Sort out your politicians.
Well,
vote for someone normal.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. In fact, your mate, Nick Ferrari.
How is he my mate?
Oh, he's not, well, whatever. He was interviewing people like Suella Braverman. Why is he interviewing her? Why is he interviewing people from the Reform Party? They're just no marks. They've all had their time.
Is she in the Reform Party now?
She's not, but what she is going to set up a challenge conservative group. So it's going to be Conservative 2, Conservative Refresh Party.
But she's hated.
Not by the extreme racist right-wing element of the conservative voter base. They love her. I dream of sending immigrants on an aeroplane to Rwanda.
But it's a nonsense. I mean, there's 360,000 immigrants in the UK, and they've got 50 houses to choose from in Rwanda. The maths doesn't work.
No, but did you know that? I mean, the whole thing, 400 million is what they've spent on that project so far. How many, in inverted commas, if you can do that on screen, illegal, because they're not technically illegal at all, how many have they sent? None. How many Rwandan immigrants has been sent to the UK? You know, it's a reciprocal arrangement.
Yeah, I bet they've been coming every day.
No, actually, it's 6. But can you imagine a more ridiculous situation? We've spent not we, I'm not a I am actually a UK taxpayer. 400 million.
But hang on. So we're paying them.
Yes.
To send unwanted refugees from the UK.
Rwanda.
No, from the UK to Rwanda. But as well as 400 million squids, we have to take the Rwandan refugees that we also don't want.
Yes, it's
in exchange for the young men or families that are arriving by boat.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We basically get the same amount of refugees, but it costs us 400 million more.
Yep.
But in fact, we get twice as many refugees because we can't send any anyway.
The insanity is that, I mean, obviously the idea is that it is a deterrent, that if people fear going to being sent to Rwanda, they won't come in the first place. But
What's to fear? It's a beautiful place.
Well, it's not just that, but if people are willing to get into a boat that there's a real chance of them not surviving, why on earth are they going to be put off by a 1 in a million risk of being sent to Rwanda? It's just completely senseless. 400 million sterling. It's completely crazy. And I don't know if you've been following the UK news, but Angela Rayner, the Deputy Labour leader?
Yeah, she's not very popular at the moment.
Well, you know what the story is based on?
Yeah, about her fiddling her housing allowance.
Yeah. Do you know how long ago it was?
No.
It was 12 years ago.
And
the amount
still a crime?
No, but firstly, it's not a crime.
Kind of is. It's tax evasion.
No, yeah, but that's not a criminal offence.
Okay, it's tax avoidance.
Yeah, but this is something that happened 15 years ago. It was £1,500, £500, and every front page of the right-wing media in England is full of it. But what about the £4.8 billion that the Conservatives wrote off for fraudulent PPE contracts to their friends and family? That doesn't matter anymore.
Well,
They literally wrote off.
That fades into insignificance when you consider the 38 billion that they spent on an app.
Thank you. Thank you. So why on earth? The Conservatives must be so desperate at the moment. I mean, I understand that the polls came out earlier in the week indicating that the Conservatives would get 98 seats. I mean, it would be a complete annihilation of the Conservative Party. And so they are... No, you're right. I completely...
And hopefully
absolutely.
They'll sink without trace forever.
Well, it's going to be resurrected by people, unfortunately, like Suella Braverman, with the refreshed conservative ultra-right.
See, as soon as you start using buzzwords like refresh, the game is over, because people aren't that stupid.
They are.
They're not, though. It's never worked. It's never worked. New Labour, that went down well.
No. But what are you talking about? You understand that the Reform Party, which was Brexit and then whatever it was, they're polling 6 or 7% of the vote.
Yeah, but that's not enough.
Well, no, but it's still 6 or 7% of people think, oh, I know, I'm going to vote for the Reform Party.
I would rather they vote for anyone other than Keir Starmer or the Tories. I would like to see anyone in power.
Other than Keir Starmer? You'd like to see Lee Anderson in power?
You're not going to tell me again how you think Keir Starmer is a good representative of a Labour Party.
He's better than the Tories, is all I'm saying.
He's exactly the same as the Tories.
Bloody hell, Andy.
He is a Tory.
The rabbit hole that you find yourself in.
Sir Keir Starmer is a fucking Tory.
What are you talking about?
He's not.
He came from a
did
working...
he fuck? What did his dad do?
What do you mean? His dad was a shop owner.
Harrods?
Don't be ridiculous. He went to a comprehensive school. He worked up through the ranks.
Did he go to a comprehensive school?
He did.
Not
he
a
might
chance.
have gone to a grammar school.
Why did he get a knighthood? Was it for services to...
What do you mean? He was what do you call it? The fellow in charge of prosecution.
Prostitute of what?
You're such an idiot. I can't believe that you, of all people, would put Keir Starmer into the same bracket as the likes of Boris Johnson and what's his name? Who's the Prime Minister? I've even forgotten his name. He's such a
Rishi Sunak. They've all been involved in the same circle jerk. I hate them all.
Yeah, well, that, unfortunately, you see, that is the problem. Because people like you, all politicians are liars. Yeah, they are. You just put them into this.
That's the only true thing you've said all morning.
You've got to use your brain occasionally, Andy, and actually differentiate. There are levels of. I mean, I personally think Keir Starmer is a positive. You may think he's a negative, but even if he is a negative, there's scales of negativity, isn't there? Rishi Sunak is literally the bottom of the barrel. Any Tory, Lee Anderson, even in Reform, bottom of the barrel. At least Keir Starmer actually has the interests of the people at heart. He's not in it for his own benefit. Whereas every single Tory that I can think of is. So, no, anyway, you can't be lazy.
Zero interest to anyone.
What, hearing us rant at each other? What do you think people tune in for other than a good rant?
Well, hopefully they're going to tune in for what I'm going to talk about today. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we did a thing about advertising in the early years.
What, the ones that contain cocaine and heroin and things like that? Yes.
And I thought that was quite fun to do. And then Richard suggested that we should do one about parenting and how that's changed over the years and parenting advice. So I did a minimal bit of research.
As you do.
And came up with some quite interesting stuff. Now, as soon as most people have children.
Yes.
The first thing they get, apart from a reality check, is a lot of unsolicited advice.
Thank you. Sorry, just to come back. It's actually relating to parenting. He passed his 11 plus and went to the Reigate Grammar School. Thank you.
That's not a comprehensive.
It's a state school. It's not a.
You
It's
see
not.
any state kids getting into grammar schools today? It just doesn't happen.
Look, you can't. I can't give you the facts and then you just come up with some other nonsense.
It's
He
true.
went to a state school.
It's not a state school anymore. Grammar schools just are not.
What do you mean? Only because they hardly exist anymore. But I think, funnily enough, Aylesbury Grammar still exists. And I think, funnily enough, Reigate Grammar still exists. There are about 80 of them in the UK. State
Reigate.
Education. Thank you. I rest my case.
Reigate.
I rest my case.
He's still a Tory. So whether this advice, this unsolicited advice, comes from well-meaning friends, family members, co-workers, or anyone who thinks they know a thing or two about raising kids, you're going to get a ton of anecdotes. And as a new parent, you do want guidance, just not from, well, them. Expert parenting books, and I say the word expert very loosely, as you know, they actually date back as far as the 1660s.
Well, people have been parents for quite some time. They probably go back before the 1660s. There were parents around.
Yes, but not the books.
Oh, I see. Books. Yeah. Well, sorry. And sorry, you wound me up with this Keir Starmer thing. His father was a tool maker.
Oh, fuck off. I'm a tool maker.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. His father was what you do for a living, so you can hardly complain, you bloody hypocrite. Anyway, 1660, what was the parenting advice they gave?
Well, no, hang on. In 1693, John Locke wrote Some Thoughts Concerning Education, in which he shared a little quip that sort of stood the test of time. And it's this. Before I got married, I had 6 theories about bringing up children. Now I have 6 children and no theories.
It's not really very funny. It might have been in 1660 where they didn't have comedy shows on TV, but that was hardly riveting.
Well, it might not make the Ben Elton show or the Young Ones, but it's kind of amusing.
I thought you were going to say something like children should be seen but not heard.
Oh, that will come into it. We're going to go back sort of 50 years to when we were young and fresh-faced. In 1962, is a familiar name, although I hope there's no relation. Dr. Walter Sackett published his expert parenting advice in the book Bringing Up Babies.
That's a bloke.
Yes, Dr. Walter
what the hell
Sackett.
are blokes, dude? Blokes weren't even involved in parenting 50 years ago.
Yes, but women weren't doctors. So how dare you think you can write a book about parenting? Now, remember, you're the one who believes that doctors are the experts. So I'm just going to leave that hanging there. So his book, Bringing Up Babies, A Family Doctor's Practical Approach to Childcare. Even the title is bouncy and singings at you. Even then, most experts agreed to introduce solid foods gradually and only start when babies were like at least several months old. Sackett.
That's a bit vague.
Yes, but Sackett disagreed. He was very, very exact on when solids should be introduced.
Go for
He
it.
reasoned by acknowledging the custom called mummins, practiced in Alabama and Mississippi.
Yes, they know a lot about parenting in Alabama and Mississippi. I refer you to the Top Gear episode.
He had also heard that it exists in Florida amongst Native Americans, this mummins, also in South Africa and the West Indies. What is mummins?
Yes, what is mummins?
Well, good old Dr. Sackett touted pre-mastication, which is basically how adult birds feed their young by chewing the food and then regurgitating it for their babies, except humans simply chew, no regurgitating involved.
So they chew. Oh, well, yeah, well, that's not too radical. So it's basically like liquidizing it.
Although Sackett does not specifically recommend pre-mastication, he points to it as an early and healthy practice of feeding solids to infants and goes on to recommend feeding solids to children at 2 to 3 days old.
Oh, well, that's a bit radical, isn't it? No. I mean, the mastication bit, not too shocking, but 2 to 3 days old, that's just absurd.
Sackett also quite savagely called out other doctors for not recommending parents feed infants solids, writing, "I suspect that those authorities who claim that muscles for swallowing solid food are not properly developed until 4 months of age have made this idea up in their own minds and have never actually tried feeding solids to a newborn like I have."
I wonder if he has. He probably never even met a newborn. He was the one with 6 children, was he, this fellow?
No, that was in the 1600s.
Oh,
this is in the 1960s.
Oh, I can't ask Mum when I started on solids, but I bet it wasn't 2 days.
Unfortunately for Sackett, but probably fortunately for the babies, modern science continues to advocate starting solids after 4 months old.
What is it? I mean, you talked about doctors and my holding doctors in high regard.
Yeah.
What is surprising is that there are, even in something like medicine, there are outliers who believe in the absolute craziest bullshit. It's, they're doctors, they went to medical school, and they can come up with something that is patently absurd in terms of believing in.
Well, I think this chap Sackett sort of was the leader of that band in the 60s because he didn't only advise feeding cereal to newborns. He had many more opinions.
I bet he did. I'll tell you one minor experience as an interlude. So my children were born 30 years ago, as were yours roughly. And I was given a book by an Australian about how to be a father. So 30 years ago, that was 1990 or thereabouts, 1992, 94. And it was written by an Australian. And it was so incredibly condescending of men's ability or interest in looking after children. It was like something out of what you are describing in the 60s, where people, fathers touching their baby, changing nappies. I mean, it's just, and this was 1990 out of Australia. And it reminded me, I've told you before, when I was living in Oz, 1985, it was like going back to the 40s and 50s. The attitude of men and women, it was literally like going, I told you we had to lie about being married, otherwise no one would rent us an apartment. I was there with my, at that stage, girlfriend who had to be my wife, otherwise they wouldn't rent us an apartment. This is in 1985.
Yeah. Crazy.
Anyway, sorry, what other has Sackett got to do with anything?
Well, he, above everything else, valued morality.
That always sets off the alarm bells.
Yeah, he wrote that medicine is secondary to ensuring your child becomes a good citizen.
Right. He wasn't a born-againer, was he? And was not a born-againer. What's that, people who don't like blood transfusions? Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witness, I don't believe so. But he quoted the Rules for Raising Juvenile Delinquents, which was published by the
rules to how to raise juvenile delinquents, or how to avoid raising.
No, it was rules for raising juvenile delinquents, but it was published by the Houston Police Department, which included picking up after your child and giving in to your child's wants. Now, Ben J. Shepherd, MD, agreed writing in the foreword of Bringing Up Babies.
The forward.
The foreword.
Forward. You know, the flip of paper on the forward of his book.
It's called a foreword. Forward.
No, it's not.
It is. It's a foreword.
It's a W-A-R-D, forward.
No, it's Foreword. It's like an epilogue, but it's a prologue. It's a foreword.
Inside the cover of a book, the introduction is written by someone other than the author, and that's called a foreword, is it?
Yes.
Oh, shit, I always thought it was called a forward, as in forward.
As in centre forward?
Yes, exactly. All right, carry on. So what did this fellow write in his
I've forgotten
foreword?
now. I've forgotten. You've just thrown me right off my track. So it is forward. He wrote, the sooner a child realises that he's only a small part of society, the better off he'll be.
Realising their own insignificance. Well, that's a challenge for almost every human being around today. They don't understand the insignificance of their being.
Well, it sounds a little bit preposterous, and that's probably because it is. According to Psychology Today, the most important thing you can ever give your baby is unconditional love.
Thank you.
And I mean, you don't need to be a scientist or an expert to realise that, surely. I mean, not whipping your child into shape is generally natural.
I think that you are generally absolutely right. You don't need experts telling you things, but there's a surprisingly large community of people on this planet that do need people to tell them what you may consider to be the most basic information about all sorts of things. And all I cite is you go on to that forum that we sometimes look at, Brits in Sweden, the absolutely inane questions that people ask on that forum. Amazed they don't know it themselves, but I don't know whether I want to mention it. It was so stupid. There was someone there who didn't know where to buy a plug. I mean, I'm talking about a plug. I mean, seriously, why would you post on a public forum that you don't in your own brain know where to buy a plug? They sell plugs literally everywhere. Any Claes Olsen, any supermarket, you can buy a plug. But no, these people decide to resort to asking on a forum. So you think about, some people, unfortunately, and it's quite shocking, do need the most basic information about children, like feeding them on a regular basis, changing their nappy on a regular basis. Some people just, oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought you could save it up in the nappy for a week.
Well, a lot of people, and I know this from my own personal experience, it didn't happen to me because I could afford nappies, but I know a lot of people who found them very expensive.
Well, that's...
while Hannah's nappy was changed 9-10 times a day as needed, I knew people who wouldn't change them more than once a day.
No, but that's something completely different. That's not out of ignorance. That's out of a lack of finances to pay for them. And that is, I'm not criticizing those people. I'm saying that some people literally don't understand you have to do it. Hopefully it wasn't 9 or 10 times a day, 5 or 6.
You'd have to ask the person who did the changing, because clearly it wasn't me.
This is dangerous territory for you, Andy. I mean, did you do that sort of? I mean, I didn't, as I told you, because I was never at home to.
I have changed her nappy, but not 99% of the time.
No,
I was, like you, I was out at work, and I was pilloried for that as well, for not being here.
No, but
sorry, I was out earning the nappies.
No, but you can understand if you. If you grew up in Sweden, as your ex did, or as Hannah's mum did, obviously they have different far more sensible and balanced ideas to parenting. I'm
Yeah,
sure
but I
Alex,
mean,
my son, changes little Leo's nappy just as much as the mum.
yeah, but he qualifies for a year off work for being a dad. In the UK, you get 20 minutes down the pub to wet the baby's head, and that's it.
Funnily enough, it has changed actually. I think there is parental leave. What's father?
It's certainly not a
Paternal
year.
leave.
It's certainly not a year.
No. I'm not saying it is, but I was the same as you. When Alex was born, I took 3 days off work, and when Izzy was born, I took half a day. I left at lunchtime.
Because it was just a girl child.
She was born. Well, no, it's absolutely. But having said that, I got married and had 3 days off for my honeymoon. So in those days, you had crazy different priorities. It's all madness. It was madness. Anyway, back to this poor fellow. What's his name? Suckett or Socket or whatever.
I think we've pilloried Sackett enough.
Sackett, what a name.
The next thing that we are going to talk about was something that very much happened during our lifetime. And again, it's something that I can't understand.
We're back to parenting. I'm just actually looking for that Australian parenting book. Sorry, carry on.
Publications from the 40s all the way up to the 1990s recommended that infants should be put to sleep laying on their stomach.
Oh, no, well, that was quite a big debate, actually.
I don't understand the debate, because even to me as a teenager, when this debate was going on, I could see that this was not the way babies should naturally sleep. It was an instinctual gut feeling that this is wrong.
Yes, but
you're putting their face in, but you're putting a baby's face into a pillow, a baby's face that doesn't have the neck muscles to move around if it's suffocating or choking. It's just so unnatural. I just couldn't understand it.
It was quite short-lived, though, actually, because certainly
it went on from the 40s to the 90s.
Really?
Yes.
What do you mean? You and I were put on our tummies to sleep, were you?
I would imagine so.
Hmm.
And it was only when, in the 90s, they did a big campaign, you might remember it, called Back to Sleep.
No, but
and
anyway.
It was all over the TV. And after this campaign, during the time people were put on their fronts to sleep, sudden infant death syndrome was quite rife.
Oh, yes, that was a real, oh, God, that was terrible, wasn't it?
They reckon that possibly over 60,000 lives in just the United States, Europe, United Kingdom, and Australasia may have been saved by knowing what we know now, that children should only be put to sleep on their backs.
Do you remember?
Because they're like turtles. They just can't turn themselves.
Do you remember? It's not really a funny subject, but because it causes so much anxiety in new parents, and you may still be able to get them. They used to have microphones that they put onto the side of the little cot, so you could hear your baby breathing.
I mean, we had baby monitors.
No, that was if they started crying. No, but these were actually monitors to make sure they were still breathing. Can you imagine the level of anxiety of a parent if you constantly were listening that your little baby was still breathing? Anyway, whatever. It's on their back these days, that's for sure.
Yes.
I think my little grandson, he is 2 months old, and he can now.
He can chew his own steak.
Yeah, he's on steak and chips now. He can definitely push himself up, like a press up, and turn his head from side to side. You can certainly do that. Yeah. No, but yes.
So he's 2 months old, so he's 10 months away from his first birthday.
Yes, that's normally how it works.
And well, you probably don't remember your first birthday.
No, do you remember yours?
I do. But you were undoubtedly shoveling ice cream and cake into your gob with one hand.
I was one, or maybe I was, yeah.
While adorably knocking back some sippy cup espresso with the other.
I'll tell you what, Andy, I've got a good story for you here.
Oh
My
no, let me
parents.
finish this one
All right,
first.
then I'll tell you what. You were talking about birthday parties. I'll relate my birthday
And I'm
party
telling you,
story.
this was in 1963.
Oh yes, it could have been. You might be describing my birthday party when I was
You
2.
may have actually washed your cake down with a warm caffeinated beverage.
They were giving coffee to
In
2-year-olds,
1-year-olds.
1-year-olds.
In addition to advising mothers that their baby should be weaned away from fat-containing milk entirely by the first birthday, they introduced another novel idea. Once you take away the milk, the youngster should be getting his liquids in the form of fruit and vegetable juices, soups, water, non-fat dry milk, and the gradual introduction of tea and coffee.
All right, here's my funny story. I don't know what Mum and Dad were quite normal people. I mean, they weren't, weird. In my mind, they weren't particularly weird. They were, quite normal. So, but I didn't often have birthday parties. In fact, I very, very rarely had birthday parties where friends from school came over, probably because I didn't have any friends. But anyway, I do remember one birthday when I was probably maybe 8 or something. I was something that old. We were all mobile and we were playing around in the garden. So Mum obviously organised the food for a party for 8-year-olds. And what do you think was on the menu?
Pimm's, glass of Pimm's when you arrived.
No, you won't believe it. Mum thought it would be nice to do a salad niçoise for everybody. I mean, what was she thinking? And so
Were there petit fours?
A salad niçoise for 8-year-olds. And the other thing was they hadn't obviously got the idea of that you have games at parties.
Oh, they were definitely sacketeers, your parents.
So Dad, he had to come up with something to entertain these 8-year-olds. So he quickly got a cardboard box, drew a donkey on it, and we had to pin the tail on the donkey.
I'm surprised he didn't sit you all down for a rubber of gin rummy.
So that was my 8th birthday party, salad niçoise. I'm not being nasty to Mum and Dad. They obviously, but why didn't they know any better?
Because of Dr. Sackett.
Yes, exactly.
And frankly, we're going to bring him back into this because.
Do you know what a salad niçoise is, by the way?
No, because I was never 8.
No, it's a salad basically with cold beans. People occasionally put anchovies into it. It was something that definitely no 8-year-old would enjoy. I'll look up salad niçoise to give you a quick recipe recommendation.
Well, there's no
when your
need.
grandchild, if Hannah ever has any children, you can do this for her.
All right,
Carry on.
Dr. Sackett, talking about caffeine, wrote, "Don't scream when you find me recommending tea and coffee for babies. Yes, I know they contain caffeine and that caffeine is a drug." But his reasoning was that since caffeine was also in Coke and parents often gave those to kids, he felt that tea and coffee was healthier as it didn't contain sugar. But actually, my tea does contain sugar.
Yes, you have about 4 bloody cubes in your thing.
I have 2.
No, you have 2 spoons of sugar.
Have you seen the size of my bucket?
Yeah, that's true.
Have you seen the size of the puppies on my bucket?
Here we go. Salad niçoise from Nice, traditionally made with tomatoes, hard-boiled eggs, olives, anchovies, tuna, dressed with olive oil, sometimes with haricot, what are haricot in English? Beans, long string beans.
Well, I mean, there's so much in there for a child to enjoy.
Yes, exactly. Almost every aspect, every element of the salad is something that children don't like. Apart from the hard-boiled eggs. They can have those with soldiers.
I think we need to do this.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Dr. Sackett and his books are available.
So he's carrying on recommending tea and coffee to 1-year-olds.
Oh, he was. I mean, he was the poster boy for everything you should do the opposite of.
Yeah.
If he recommended something, you should literally do the opposite, and you won't be going far wrong.
Here's an example of how any. I don't know how not to be rude to people who give Coke to 2-year-olds, but you seriously, you go to McDonald's and they're little children in prams with a cup of Coke that they're drinking through straws. I mean, in my mind, that you wouldn't imagine you need an expert to tell you that giving Coke to a 2-year-old is a bad thing. But unfortunately, so many people you see giving Coke. I mean, can you imagine? Or are you're very silent. You used to give Coke to Hannah.
When you said giving Coke to a 2-year-old, I was thinking, a little sniff here and there.
Exactly, you were thinking of something else. No, but anyway, and I don't mean to be. Is the word condescending? I don't mean to be condescending. It's just that,
you're quite right. The sugar infested and even the sugar free.
I know,
which is a lie.
Yes.
You should never give those kind of things to kids.
Well, we used to. I mean, actually, in our lifetime, don't you remember? I used to drink Ribena by the gallon.
Yeah.
So, anyway, whatever.
Especially
Carry on.
The blackcurrant one.
That is. What do you mean? All Ribena's blackcurrant?
No, they had flavours.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
Bollocks, did they?
Google it.
No, you're thinking of Robinson's barley water.
No. You can check it out. Ribena's got flavours.
Well, it might do now, but not when I was a child. Anyway. So, sorry, have we finished this episode on parenting?
No, not at all. I'm just waiting for you to stop spouting.
I'm such an expert myself.
Now, we're going to talk about a book called 1950's Mother. And this takes you back in time and reveals some of the advice spouted in that decade. And one example is Mabel Lydiard's The Mothercraft Manual.
Quite useful. What was she recommending?
Well, she initially went in a pretty reasonable direction, urging that motherhood is a natural, normal event and not an illness.
What? She thought it might have been considered an illness to be a mother.
A lot of people did. A lot of people think that being pregnant is the same as being ill.
Don't be ridiculous.
But as a nurse and a midwife, Lydiard wanted women to continue their everyday lives. Certainly not bad advice in the right context. However, a specific recommendation to spend copious amounts of time outdoors, regardless of weather conditions, was a bit extreme and possibly harmful.
Maybe. Not too sure about that one.
Modern advice urges expectant mothers to be mindful of the weather, especially during the summer.
Because of dehydration to hotness, you mean?
Yeah, and midwife Denise Gershwin wrote for The Bump.
Was she related?
No. That pregnant women should be particularly vigilant when spending time outside during the hottest part of the day or for extended periods of time to avoid getting dehydrated.
Yep, that's
She also shared advice about exercise. And her thinking was that if women played sports before becoming pregnant, why not just continue to participate as if nothing's changed?
Well, as long as it's not weightlifting. Women didn't do much weightlifting in the 50s, but
although exercise during pregnancy is important, some sports probably should be avoided. High-impact sports that carry a risk of either collision or falling, horseback riding, softball. Weightlifters and rugby players don't generally get pregnant.
Oh, what do you mean? There's loads.
I don't know which rugby team you follow.
What, women's rugby? Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, they're generally not getting pregnant. Women rugby players.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Sorry. Don't be ridiculous. Absurd. You're just assuming they're all lesbians, are you?
I didn't say that.
You did. You basically
just said
implied
that.
it so blatantly. What a world you live in, Andy.
So,
you could have written a book in the 50s.
Horseback riding, softball, volleyball, etc. They should be put on hold until after giving birth. Women's rugby and
Weightlifting.
kissing practice, I don't know, whatever you do, you girls, is quite all right. We can't. Now, the American Pregnancy Association recommends that all pregnant women should come up with a birth plan, but then so does the NHS and most other health bodies. Fairly simple documents stating your preferences during labour and delivery. And what an expectant mother chooses is up to her. Although, of course, if there's medical limitations or if something might pose a risk.
Sorry,
to the
hang on
mother
a
of
second. Are
child.
we not quoting from this 50s book this woman wrote in the 50s that wasn't an illness? Have we finished with her?
Yeah, it was about the exercise more than anything. She just insisted
Oh,
you
I
should
see.
carry on regardless.
Right.
Anyway, one birth plan that would probably get denied now was published in the book Come Gently, Sweet Lucina. Which
It sounds like some sort of porn book.
It sounds like something Paul Raymond Publishing would have put out.
Exactly.
But it was put out by Patricia Carter in 1956. And she endorsed natural labour, though her description of this term is probably completely the opposite of what we would think of it. She fully believed that giving birth should be free of pain and shouldn't involve any hard work. She believed that those things were unnatural. And she referred, and hard work. And she referred...
She wasn't a doctor and a midwife, was she, by any chance?
She probably was, come to that, because she's an expert. She referred to this type of labour as pro-instinct birth and brainless, will-less birth. Carter's other ideas were pretty much out there. She promoted the idea of having a small baby for an easier birthing experience.
Well, how can you... What control have you got over the size of you, other than... other than marrying a dwarf.
Well, if you smoke, you're generally getting a smaller baby.
Oh, I see. So promoting alcohol and nicotine to... This is ridiculous.
Throughout her own pregnancy, she decided she only wanted to gain 5 pounds.
That's 2 kilos.
So, yes. So she dieted, took laxatives, and smoked cigarettes. She also recommended drinking large amounts of alcohol during labour to release inhibitions, relax muscles, and supply energy.
You find these things on... This is one of your minority dark websites where no one...
This is
not a book that was ever published.
This is a book that was published in 1956.
No.
Her drink of choice was a whiskey highball.
God. What you've got to be... I'm a bit concerned now. What you've got to be careful of when you devise the title of this podcast is to make sure that it's what not to do in terms of parenting. Otherwise, we'll get another A-level student who does their parenting thesis based on our advice from the podcast.
Well, we were talking about smoking, and according to Smoking and Pregnancy, the Politics of Fetal Protection, some studies had already been conducted prior to 1966 to figure out what, if any, risks came from smoking during pregnancy. And although doctors recognised there was a link between cigarette smoking and low birth weight, they didn't feel that low birth weight in itself was necessarily harmful. To be on the safe side, Williams Obstetrics cautioned it is nevertheless recommended that excessive smoking be avoided during pregnancy. And the book continued, 10 cigarettes or fewer a day
Is okay.
during pregnancy are quite likely innocuous.
So sorry, when was that? What year was that book published, or that advice?
66.
Yeah, but I mean, incredible as it seems, I mean, smoking wasn't really thought upon as a health hazard until when? Seriously. I mean, when did people actually think, hang on a second, this isn't good for you?
When I was born, the doctor delivering me had a fag hanging out of his mouth.
He did not.
And when he looked at me, saw how ugly I was, he turned around and slapped my mother.
No, but seriously, wasn't it
I remember when we got taken to the doctor as kids, our doctor was smoking in the surgery.
Well, in fact, you joke. Well,
I'm not joking.
No, you're not joking. Doctors had a terrible record of smoking. But when would you guess that people actually woke up? When did people actually wake up to the fact that smoking was definitely not good for you? I reckon it wasn't until the 70s.
About a week ago.
No.
Honestly, it's like...
Maybe the 80s.
No, not even the 80s. I would say 90s. People just weren't accepting it. No matter how much...
I remember when I was working in Stockholm in 1984, most people in the office smoked. Most people in the office smoked. In the office. I mean, I remember when... you must remember when you were... Did you... Yeah, you got the underground trains to...
Oh, yeah, when you could smoke on the tube.
Well, actually on the Met line, because we were a little bit more upmarket than the Northern line, which you obviously used, there were 2 smoking carriages on each train, and literally the nicotine was dripping off the ceiling. It was absolutely... and I was a smoker, and actually, no, I wasn't. I'd stopped by then. If you were forced to get into a smoking carriage on the underground, you stank of tobacco. It was, oh God. So anyway, 1980s. So it's not surprising that some idiot in 1966 was saying 10 fags a day is completely harmless for the baby. Madness.
I mean, there was so many examples of bad parenting advice. There was a behaviourist called John Watson who said that holding babies too much would spoil them, and he took it to the next level by advising mothers to be sensible in how they interact with their babies. Never hug or kiss them, or let them sit on your lap. Shake hands with them in the morning.
Don't be written. That's not written.
No,
You've made that up.
I know that this happened in your household.
Don't be
ridiculous. Shake hands with them in the morning and give them a pat on the head if they have made an extraordinary job of a difficult task.
Speaking of which, it actually prompts me. I took note of a photograph of Prince William was out together with his son. What's his son's name? Whatever his son's name is. I reckon the son is probably 5 or 6, something like that. That son was wearing a jacket and tie. Yes. Well, not a 2-piece suit. I mean, what world do these people live in? No one wears a tie anymore. In the city, no one wears a tie, and they're grown-ups. Why on earth would you, your 8-year-old, wear a shirt and tie?
Yeah, it's just
they were at some sporting event. It's just insane.
You should be wearing a football shirt.
If he's at a football match, he should be wearing a football short, because they can certainly afford them, unlike most other parents who can't afford football shirts these days.
Anyway, this John Watson fella said, if you must, you may kiss them once on the forehead when you say good luck.
Isn't it interesting? All these are blokes. Absolute
well, of course they are, because as
blokes.
I told you, experts in those days were not women, because women should be in the kitchen having babies.
I can update you, actually. I can update that fellow. If he's still alive, he should listen in. There is some chemical response if you have skin-to-skin contact with your baby that's very healthy for them, and it makes them actually the opposite of what you imagine. It makes them far more independent far earlier with this chemical reaction when it's skin-to-skin contact. It's
some kind of endorphin release.
Yeah, exactly. It's some kind of endorphin release.
Okay, we're gonna talk about the last thing, parenting advice and actual parenting.
What
before
year
we
are
go
we
on
talking?
to, we're going back to the 30s.
Oh, yeah.
So
that
90 years ago. Before we go on to a couple of modern day case studies of parenting.
Oh no, that sounds a bit nasty to me.
Now,
You're not
everybody
talking
knows.
about nannies, are you? You're not going to get on to
I'm
me.
not going to go on to your nanny.
Which I never had.
Liar. Fresh air, as we all know, is good for a growing baby. But what is a poor mother to do if she lives in a high-rise block and has no garden?
Oh no, I'm starting to get a bit nervous now.
Build a metal cage, put your baby in it, and then hang it precariously out of the window.
Yeah, but this is... Where is this? In South America or something?
This is in the UK. In 1937, well-meaning mothers could acquire just such a contraption. Even better, according to the patent on one such device, she could order the cage with curtains so she could leave baby out there all night without having to worry about a draft in the house.
Oh my God. They didn't have high rises in the 30s, so this is obviously some sort of...
Even if it was an upstairs tenement.
Oh dear.
A baby cage hanging out the window.
They were probably feeding them heroin at the same time out
possibly be psychologically damaging.
God dear.
Well, that sort of brings us not to the end of the episode, but certainly to the end of bad parenting advice from 60 years ago.
I don't think I want to hear the stories of bad parenting. They all have happy endings, do they? But the children, in spite of that, the children grew up to be completely normal, well-adjusted children.
There's going to be no gory deaths or anything, probably. But you're going to see some examples of how we parent today as opposed to how we parented 50 years ago.
I've given you a good example. Skin-to-skin contact.
That's a very good example. I'm going to give you one now. Where a 34-year-old British mother, Kerry Campbell.
This sounds criminally related if you got her name.
Claimed that before beauty pageants, she would inject her 8-year-old's face with Botox to smooth out wrinkles. And the daughter even got in on the act by stating that while she used to cry every time the injections were made, she had learned to tough it out. Now this turned heads. Eventually, it was found that the woman had actually been paid by the Sun to make up the whole story in order to circulate a fabricated and controversial story.
Oh, that's all right. So that's just corrupt media.
But consider that this woman willingly put herself and her daughter into the limelight for a few quid. And their pictures in the paper. That's bad parenting.
Yeah, but it's not that. I'll tell you what, it would have been more shocking if she had actually been using Botox. But, you don't know what's...
I'm going to give you one.
Oh, dear. Was that the Sun? Sorry, just to double check.
The Sun had paid her. Yeah. Now, it's no secret that young girls today are bombarded on social media with toxic messaging equating self-worth to appearance.
Yes.
And some parents play a huge part in shaping this insecurity. One mother, who is nicknamed the Human Barbie,
that doesn't sound good.
Decided to help her daughter overcome said bodily insecurities by offering to pay for her $10,000 boob job when her daughter was only 7 years old.
Don't be ridiculous. That is a fabrication.
The mother claims she did it because her daughter constantly asked for a boob job, as well as liposuction and other surgeries to make herself look better. When her daughter was only 6 years old, the Human Barbie even taught her little girl to pole dance. Even now, she sees nothing wrong with what she did. But you have to question why a little girl would feel the need for a boob job or liposuction.
There's no doctor in the world, even some backstreet criminal plastic surgeon who would do a boob job on a 7-year-old.
No, but the point is that she invested the money now so she could cash in her boob job when she became a certain age.
Oh, I see. So she didn't actually have a boob job.
No. She gave her the certificate of I owe you one boob job.
Oh, I see.
It's just... Now, this is a story that warms the cockles of my heart.
All right, go for it.
I was in a very similar situation.
What, needing a boob job?
No, this next story. Well, you'd think that nobody in their right mind would ever let their child drive their car.
Oh, yes.
One drunken father
Yes.
in Detroit let his 9-year-old daughter drive the car for him while he was drunk in the passenger seat.
What? That's perfectly sensible.
Surprisingly, she turned out to be quite a good driver.
Well, you know, I used to drive at a very early age, not on the road, admittedly, and not with my father being drunk. He was at work.
I remember driving my old man in Ireland once, drunk as he was from the pub in his, I think it was Daimler at the time. It was either a
Your
Daimler or
old
a
man
Jet.
had a Daimler. Now the truth comes out.
It was second hand. It wasn't like yours.
Oh, it was second hand, but it was
Straight
still
from
a
the factory.
Daimler. Oh, yeah, your working class father, of course. Yeah, he used to drive a Daimler. All working class men drive Daimlers.
Yes. Posh Spice's dad had a Rolls Royce and he was not posh.
Why, what did Posh Spice's dad do?
Plumber or something.
That's Victoria Beckham, isn't it, Posh Spice?
Yeah. Anyway, even when police pulled her over, she said to them, "Why did you stop me? I was driving good."
God.
Oh.
Oh, it's a dangerous subject, isn't it, really, parenting?
It is.
I mean, I'm sure that father was convinced that he was doing the right thing, not driving drunk.
Yeah, and, you know, to a point, he was. I mean, as I say, it happened when I was in Ireland with my dad. And my dad, my younger brother were both faceless.
Well, how old were you? 12 or 13?
No, not that old, I don't think.
I'm surprised being in Ireland you didn't jump onto the back of a horse. Didn't you have a horse?
Well, we did actually. We had a donkey. We had access to a donkey,
You
which we
didn't
used to
have a
ride.
horse, but you had a donkey.
We used to have access to a donkey, which we used to ride down to the cross house.
I can't, just remind me and the listeners, you actually lived in Ireland for a time, didn't you?
No. My dad was from County Cork, but we used to go there for school holidays.
Right, so the only time you spent in Ireland was school. Do you still have family in Ireland?
Yeah, of course. Hannah went over to visit them a couple of years ago.
You didn't?
No, she went with her mum.
She went with her Swedish mum to visit Hannah's Irish relatives who you've never been to visit.
I haven't been visiting for many years. I would like to at some point, but you know, I'd like to do a lot of things.
It's Ireland.
Yeah, I know, but it's still like, you know, it's still quite hard to plan. I've got so many relatives over there. Anyway, let's have one more and then I'll let you be on your merry way.
To my medical.
In Orlando, Florida.
Florida. That's a good place for children.
Footage
emerged. Children.
Footage emerged online of two girls, 14 and 17, getting into a fairly vicious fist fight. When the police investigated, it turned out that not only was the younger girl's mother present at the fight, but she'd also invited other people to watch the fight after luring the 17-year-old to the scene. When the authorities questioned her, she insisted that she tried to break up the fight, but some men had held her back. But when she realised that the footage showed her not only unrestrained, but also shouting, "Hit her harder," she confessed that she'd arranged the whole affair so that the two girls could settle their argument. The mother was charged with child abuse, and the two girls were suspended from school. There's no teaching moments can be taken away from that.
not the most dramatic parenting story that you could have related, but well done that you found it.
Okay, for that, you're going to get one more.
Hang on, I've got a phone ringing here.
Is it your parents?
No, it's not. I'll have to call her back.
Russian authorities.
Oh, no, this is going to be a bit gory.
You'll have to call who back? Is this a date?
No, it's the chairman. Oh, no, it's the chairman of the village committee. I'm the treasurer.
They found the discrepancy.
No, they haven't.
Russian authorities were called to Moscow airport when 7-year-old Artyom Savely arrived alone in the city. The plane, which had travelled from Tennessee...
In America?
Yep. Took the boy alone from the US to Russia. American police learned that the boy had been brought to the airport by his adoptive grandmother and dumped there. The adoptive family claimed that the boy was unstable. She claimed she sent him on the plane for the safety of herself and her family, but the child, as far as anyone could tell, didn't seem to display any unstable tendencies on the plane ride across the country. The family didn't consider it child abandonment because they left the child in the care of the stewardesses on the plane. And they were confident that despite all her other duties, the stewardess would focus solely on the child.
But sorry, where did he get off the plane?
Moscow.
Exactly. What?
Artyom told authorities that his adopted mother would frequently pull his hair and throw fits around him. And clearly, someone in this whole scenario was not stable. This event was so bad that Russia banned all American parents from adopting orphans out of Russia for several years after this.
Oh, I see. So the little fellow had originated in Russia, but was adopted by parents
Americans.
in Tennessee.
Yeah. And they sent him back, basically on his own, because, no.
Oh, God.
But anyway, I think that's enough bad parenting. That's got to bring us to the end of this week's episode about parenting.
It was the 10 cigarettes a day that doesn't do mothers too much harm.
I mean, we've had a little bit of a giggle, but some of the stuff that we used to do and what we do today is still fucking shocking.
No, but as I say, feeding 2-year-olds Coke. I mean, it's all. I mean, even of course, any child.
Don't forget, when we were kids, we would quite often be fed a little tot of whiskey to put us to sleep.
Now that is something that I remember, and you're right. It was a teaspoon of brandy.
Yeah, whatever. That's
a teaspoon of brandy to put us to sleep. But what was that drink that when we were young? No, or was it my children? It was when my children were young. Do you remember there used to be a product called Sunny Delight?
Oh, Sunny D, yeah.
That was advertised as a healthy juice drink for children.
Yeah, it turned them orange, didn't it?
And it turned them orange because it subsequently transpired that there was about 6% orange juice and the rest of it was just sugar and orange food colouring.
Chemicals.
And it literally turned the children orange. So, I mean, we're just, it's all relative.
Oh,
anyway.
I do need to say, actually, last week's episode about the Anunnaki was suggested to me by our Australian friend Luke, and I forgot to give him a shout out.
Okay.
For that.
Yeah. Well done, Luke.
So thanks for that, Luke.
And I finally
remembered.
The Sumerians.
Yes. Anyway, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks for joining us once again.
Good.
Don't forget, check out our website at strangestuffpodcast.com, where you can follow us and like us and subscribe to us on all our socials. Check us out on YouTube. We are there. We are right in your face, live and uncensored.
Yes.
And probably unedited as well, because I've been watching my language quite a lot.
Good.
Hope you've appreciated that, you fucker.
So what, that means we immediately get relegated to some adults only league.
Was
Yep.
there something else?
No, I think that covers about everything.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget, if you've got any subjects you'd like us to cover,
Oh, yes.
feel free to drop us a line at strangestuffpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll
Good.
do our utmost to research minimally and bring you a shit ton of nonsense about it.
Indeed.
Have yourselves a strange week. In the meantime, don't go having babies unless you are really, really competent. Because I don't want to have to do an update on this episode in the near future.
You're right.
Have yourselves a great week. See you next time.
Bye for now. Are you going to do something?
I'm going to do a freeze frame.